Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper, and as many of you know, I am the CEO of the Blockchain Legal Institute and also the talk show host for Crypto Mom 2. And today I have a really special episode because of the fact that I'm also the CLE attendee liaison for the Bitcoin conference, which is happening in Nashville this year. And if you are listening to this after that conference at the end of July, definitely there'll be links so that way you can look at registering for the next conference, because the Bitcoin conference happens every year, not just in the United States, but around the globe. So I'm really excited to be associated with the Bitcoin conference. And as many of you also know, I'm the author of the Bitcoin Cinderella Adventure series. So that is definitely something to check out. But today we are talking about the importance of continuing legal education, and CLE is actually not just for lawyers. It really is for anyone in the space that has an issue or a compliance question, or is looking at any of the legal questions that they might have. So I have a guest on today who is actually going to be on one of the panels, leading one of the panels at the CLE Day. Barry, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Jackie.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the CLE Day, but why don't you go ahead and give a short background about yourself as a fellow attorney, and how you got into the blockchain slash Bitcoin space, and why you think that we need to be thinking about having more of these CLE days, and why people need to attend the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you can tell from the gray in my beard, I've been doing this for a little while as far as practicing law. But I was actually an adjunct professor at a university in Iowa, and was teaching a class, gosh, it's probably 12 years ago, and had a student that brought in a project on the dark web and blockchain, and I kind of fell down the rabbit hole of trying to understand what that was and where it goes. Um, so that was just kind of a hobby and something that I thought about and was interested in and kind of kept up on. But then I expanded my practice and merged my practice with a larger firm, and now I sit in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Here in Sioux Falls, we have a very large trust industry, credit card industry, and some entrepreneurs that were moving into the digital asset space and Bitcoin. And I quickly realized that they didn't have a voice at the legislative and regulatory level. And so we formed the South Dakota Blockchain Institute about 3 years ago, to really have that voice in Pierre and in Washington, D.C., and in the Department of Banking's regulatory bodies here in the state, because people wanted to understand it and they kind of didn't know what questions to ask, and there was some bad legislation that came forward. But eventually we got the interested parties here in the state. We formed a board. We've had a couple symposiums to kind of bring that education forward. So, on the legal side, I think the issues that the industry faces are those unknowns that we don't have good answers for, or we don't have good experts to create answers for. I know most people, when they step into this space, can become overwhelmed really quickly. There's a lot of rabbit holes to fall down. There's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of ideas that people are like, wait, how does that work? And it was interesting early on. My son is active in online video games, and a game called Animal Crossing, and I was kind of looking at that and understanding they have digital assets and they have cryptocurrency,
Yeah,
and it's just
exactly.
second nature for them,
Yeah,
right?
it
It's
is.
second nature on how do you pay for things, and how do you do things, and who's in charge of it. That decentralized nature of it is very active, and they can conceive of it much easier than us old guys that are used to having a wallet full of bills, right? Or checks that we write out and things like that. So I realized that for our firm, we needed to understand this space. We were in the banking industry. We were in payment processing industry. We needed to understand this space. And so, got associates in my firm to start looking at it, and have led CLEs for, regional bar conferences and banking conferences and accounting conferences. But bringing this section of the bar together in one place is really, I think, the next step to give it its legitimacy. So we're kind of not a sideshow, but we really are creating a body of law and an expertise in the legal industry to say, hey, these are the people that know what's going on. And that's going to also, be very powerful in those that are operating against digital assets, generally in more traditional banking zones that say, hey, we're afraid of this. We're scared that this is going to happen because we're going to lose control, or we're going to lose market share, or we're going to lose deposits, or whatever they are afraid they're going to lose. The reality of I think the progressive bankers I know is they understand that this is changing, that the technology makes way too much sense not to utilize, not to completely transform the banking industry, the insurance industry, the brokerage industry. But there's a lot of people that are fat and happy and don't want things changed.
Yeah.
So, so
No,
it's
you're right about that. You're right.
yeah, so it's good for us to get together. I'm really excited to be in Nashville and sit on panels and listen to panels and spend time with folks that think about the same things I do. But inevitably there's going to be people that go right over my head. I'm an old dog and I haven't learned all the new tricks, but that's fine too. And in the end, it's basic stuff. We're trying to assist people with transactions. And I always talk about what we're really doing is creating trust. And historically, trust has been created by institutions, by having, big banks and big money and big government stepping in to create trust. But if we have immutable blockchains that are transparent, that trust is created there. The other thing that's happened, I think, in our area and it will continue to happen, and it will happen at the conference, is AI has really stepped in and taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room as far as disruptive technologies. But those of us that understand it would say there's no way that you're going to be able to get your arms around AI without blockchain, to have regulation and visibility at the same speed that AI is going to develop. So to me, it's kind of the spark that's lit this fire that's already been brewing. So I know I probably went way beyond what I was supposed to say, Jackie, which shows you
Okay.
I'm excited about the topic. But I'll stop and see what other
Yeah.
questions you might have.
Well, you know what I've learned over the 9 years of being in this space, being a Bitcoin miner and a node owner also, is, like you said, it's really important about vocabulary development and understanding, and that's what I'm excited about with the CLE panels and the day, is having that conversation with individuals like yourself and others in the audience to see what their knowledge base is and where we as a community need to go, because we are a community of innovators. And I know as the attorneys like yourself, you've been leading, the vision, and also because of the association that you're a part of, and then the clients that you assist. I know that we're connected with a number of groups, and I'm, the CEO of the Maryland Blockchain Association. This CLE Day, I think, is really important because of the national and international conversations that we're going to have, because I think Bitcoin is international, and obviously, and it propelled the DeFi space. And I think the type of panel conversations we're going to have is going to really be thought-provoking. Is there any one topic that you're thinking about that you foresee being talked about, maybe in your panel or others, that people need to be listening to?
Well, I mean, something that I've spent more time on recently than other things is the UCC 12 passage in a number of states, and I know you're still getting it through in Maryland. it doesn't certainly solve all the problems, and there's been debate about what it does and doesn't do. Some, I think, fantasy debate and some real debate. But the important thing that it does is it starts to say, we've got a structure that deals with digital assets differently than traditional fiat and banking assets, because it is different. It doesn't have that institutional place to go to. And so then what are I would say the ditches that we're going to have as we move forward with transitioning wealth from fiat assets to digital assets, which is really that intersection of the two. Um, and the reason that I do have a big focus there is because clients of mine here in South Dakota have a lot of digital assets that they're responsible for in trust companies, and they don't quite know how to get their hands around them. The banking superintendent doesn't quite know how to make sure they have their hands around them. So I think there will be a lot of conversations about that. I'm probably more excited about some of the new stuff that I'm going to learn, and really just going there like a kid in a candy store and hearing others and what they're into. But that's probably what I'll be asked more about, because that's what I've kind of been focused on. The other thing is there's a lot of different parties. There's a lot of different people that are going to be at the conference. I mean, it's a 3-day conference. The fact that our first day is focused on CLEs, I hope will allow us to kind of get rid of some of the noise and the flashing lights and the loud music, and really sit down in a room and have a more in-depth conversation about, because the reality is this is disruptive technology,
Yep.
and this disruption can be powerful in creating new things, but it can be very destructive. And having expertise legally to protect those that need protection, but allow those that want to continue to expand and grow, allowing them to grow. But if they're going to hurt other people, we may be in a role that we need to defend them. So, I'm not trying to be the sheriff in town, but there does have to be an ethos in decentralized technology that makes it work, that creates the trust, the reason that people would utilize this way of doing business versus something else. And if we don't have that, then we're just noise and garbage, and we don't have anything. So that's what's really, really cool to say. We're going to have really in-depth conversations there. So those that are curious about the space, or those that are really invested in the space, I hope you're there. I hope you're there. And if you're not at this one, get to the next one. Let's start having those meaningful conversations that we can have, and also work together, because there are really no boundaries. I mean, we're working within states to pass regulations and legislation, but ultimately, we're going to look beyond boundaries of states and countries to do things. But there is the intersection, right? I mean, that we're still getting wealth from one system into another, and that intersection is where we're spending our time for a while.
Yeah.
At the same time, we want to spend time in the Web3 and in that space, and making sure that we do a good job of designing that so it doesn't get away from us and become something we don't want to be a part of.
I agree with you on everything that you're going to say. And, sort of as a short wrap up of our conversation, for those that are attorneys listening, if you have any doubt about attending, I would say come, especially because the CLE side of this is important for understanding both how Bitcoin is navigating and supporting a community in terms of economic freedom, but also um, you're right. We live in a hybrid world. So we have the legacy side and we have the DeFi side. And Bitcoin, I think, is different than cryptocurrency and tokens. And I
Yes.
really think that it's important for as attorneys and individuals in the space for all of us to understand the differentiation between that, because that also impacts how we approach our legislation and our knowledge base and our client support. So it really is important, if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, or even if you are, for you to understand the legal topics that are being discussed, because it does have a long-term impact. So we all need to be part of this conversation. And I invite everyone to come to the CLE, even if you're not a lawyer, but if you need CLE credits, definitely this is a great way to get it. And if you have questions, reach out to either Barry or myself, because we're here to educate and we're here to support. We're all about, community development. And the Bitcoin conference, I know I've been a volunteer for a number of years, is an excellent way to educate yourself as to the business within the community and the people. So definitely want to invite everyone. So this is, I know we're going to have more conversations because you and I have a lot of common background and are working in this space. So, but for everyone who's listening, reach out, come to the booth, the Bitcoin Cinderella booth. I'd love to see you and chat with you. Visit Barry. He'll be walking around the conference, and that way you can ask your questions. And again, this will be a great time in Nashville. So come and enjoy. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everybody.